gonna paint some gray over this whole thing, just to make it soft. I usually use Old Faithful for that, which is a round brush that responds to pressure but not to shape. Well, it responds to pressure in order to fade in and fade out, as you can see, but it doesn't respond to pressure in order to shape it, like this one, right? So this is like round all along, and it's very good for these kind of things, so sort of painting over. So let's begin here at the knee, which is a very tough part of the body. Normally for sketching I use the one brush, which is not the same as the one true brush, which is the best one. But the one brush is much easier on my iPad, performance-wise, so I tend to use that one instead. Anyway, so the knee, this looks a little bit blobby. It's too rounded. It doesn't show leg shape. Usually you want to exaggerate a little bit in this part so the model doesn't look doughy. So what you can do is sort of learn to use this shape. So this is a very, very important shape, the knee shape. You can think of it like a pill, right? Or like two bells or two cups which are joining, right? Let's say that they're separated, kind of like this, you know? So just imagine that these two shapes click against each other and move around in all kinds of ways. And we don't really have to go into detail on exactly how they join or how they move. A lot of artists, they really like to study anatomy in depth, like to understand which bones are clashing here and everything. But I don't really think that's necessary to get a good drawing. All you need to know is that there's like this shape that comes here in this direction, and there's this other shape that comes up in this direction, and no matter which position the leg is, these two shapes will always find each other here, unless the character has suffered a terrible injury, right? But unless that happens, these two shapes will always find each other. So sometimes they will be tilted to one side, to the other side. They will look slightly different depending on the situation, but they will always meet, and they will always have like this little horizon line, which will tell you basically when the thigh or when the upper leg ends and when the lower leg begins, right? So you have this, right? So now the muscles of the lower leg kind of do this. They kind of wrap around, if you can imagine, like an imaginary middle bar, which doesn't exist actually in this part. In this part of the leg, what you have is like two bones, like one goes this way and the other one goes this way, something like this, right? And they meet up with a super big bone that comes this way, which is the femur, and there's a little cartilage slash bone thing here, which is the kneecap, right? So this is what's actually going on, right? So this bone going down, these two bones going up, and they meet here at the middle, and in the middle there's like a bunch of stuff, cartilage, muscles, and a little cap of bone, which is the kneecap. But you can just simplify all that into the axis of the upper leg, which goes down, axis of the lower leg, which goes up, and the muscles, which wrap around, right? So they wrap around like so. Almost every muscle in the body follows this logic. It's thin at the joints, like where it ties up to the bone. Let's imagine that this bar is a bone, right? Well, let's give it more of a bone shape, like this, right? So let's imagine that this muscle wraps here. Let's change color for clarity. There you go. It kinda grafts into the bone here, and it grafts into the bone down here as well with fibers, right? It's like stuck on. And it bulges, it becomes plump at the middle and then tapers down in the end. And it does that always, pretty much always. I can't think of an example where a muscle doesn't do this. So generally, you're always going to be looking for that shape. You're always going to be looking for these bulged on the outside and tapered on the inside, or the opposite, I don't know. Like bulged out here and really tapered down here. And this is going to be going on in a bunch of stuff that I'm going to do around here, okay? So anyway, let's cover this up again. Obviously, you can just come back to this video and take screenshots as much as you want, because I'm going to be painting over this over and over again. Okay, again, so roughly speaking, let's do it once again. Roughly speaking, you have the... Oh, it's just too big. Roughly speaking, you have these two boxes here, which can be round, they can be more angular like I do. I normally like to give it these two little notches, which mark where the dimples in the musculature would form when the knee has like already skin on it and stuff. So you have these two boxes. I like to roughly mark a couple of curves here, which just represent flesh and skin that is wrapping around the knee, right? And then I start with the muscles, which follow. Look at this curve, right? This curve that I'm doing, it's a lot like this curve. The body will constantly be doing that, constantly. Now these lines that you did, I think are good, but I think they're too high up. You're not allowing enough space for the mons pubis, as they call it. Hold on a second. Need my sketch color here. Sampled. All right. So you're gonna need a bunch of extra space here for all the shapes that I'm gonna show you. So the pubic area and the genital area would go here in this corner. Like this little triangle is where the genital area kind of begins. I think this belly button is well positioned. I think for her thickness, she needs wider hips. So kinda something around here. Around here, in order to be proportioned, in good proportion to the wide hips that we're giving her. Now these little marks of pinched skin, or like folded over skin, I think they need to end sooner. Yours end here, mine end around here, right? I think they need to end sooner so you can leave more of this space. This gap is very important. It looks weird if this goes too far out. it gives you the illusion that you're losing kind of you're losing flesh on the leg in some way, like you're losing space. It shouldn't fold that far. It would only do that in some kind of doll, like in one of those old school rag dolls. All right. So now time for another comparison to kind of more accurate versus less accurate. So in a more accurate example, there would be a huge chunk of muscle that kind of goes like this. Take note that everything I tell you is kinda. Everything is heavily kinda. You know, I don't have any precise knowledge of any of this, but I know that there's like a huge muscle that falls over. It kind of falls over the knee, and it does that thing that I told you, right? Tapered down here, super thick out here, and these are the fibers of the muscle. Like it's a huge muscle, thigh muscle. It goes out here. Now other stuff happens, which I'm not sure about. I think that there has to be, and that's the key thing. When you know how muscles behave, you start to guess, and correctly guess, where muscles should be and where muscles should appear. So now that we know that muscles behave in this fashion, we can kind of fill out the spaces of the leg, you know? So something happens around here where there are dimples and like a muscle change. So this the frontier between like muscle A and muscle B right here, where they join, where they meet, you're gonna see dimples there in finished pieces, right? And those dimples are there because of the fact that they meet. Now what's gonna happen down here? It's actually way more complicated. So I actually have no idea how this lower part works, but I know that there's like a bulging part up here, right? So there has to be some kind of muscle which bulges out. And you have another bulging part here, so in theory there would have to be another bulging muscle there, right? And this is where that book that I told you about, Anatomy for Sculptors, that book is incredibly useful because that book knows exactly which muscles are where, and you can take a look at it. And they give you all of this color coded as well. They give you colors so you can easily tell what is what, right? So roughly speaking, this is what's going on. This is the bulges and the dimples and the outs and the ins. And you kind of need to know what's going on under the skin in order to properly represent that over the skin. And even though everything we do is like super exaggerated, and we have like huge hips and huge boobs and everything like super exaggerated, even in spite of that, the best and most popular commission artists, I've noticed, they do follow strict anatomic rules, and their characters make sense in a strange way. Even though the boobs are gigantic and the hips as well, characters still make sense. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to leave space for everything. You need within the body, you need space for everything to be present. Like all the necessary muscles and organs have to have space to exist within your shape. As exotic and sculpted and specialized and niche as your shape is, you need your shape to make some kind of sense within the world. So that's why I took this triangle, the triangle of the genital area, and I moved it down a little bit because I'm gonna need some more space for what goes on here. You can do a little of cross hatching, which is what I'm doing here, to shade some of the areas and kind of make it more clear what's going down and what's bulging out. You have some dimples here. I always like to represent skin dimples as little triangles of shade. Right, so here would be, this would roughly be how her hips behave. You need space for the abs or for the tummy. Both would need space. So that's why I made these wider. And we can compare here. Your hips much more close together, right? My hips much wider. Now the hips are not the waist, right? So the waist is up here and she still has like a super tiny waist, which is, I guess, what you want. Let's shrink her a little bit so we can scale her properly. All right. Now we're going to do something super useful, which is flip the canvas to see things from a different point of view. There you go. Excellent. So now I know that this thigh is a little short compared to this one, and I'm going to fix accordingly. So this interaction would, you see, this clash I showed just as a little line, and it goes down here. And the dimples would live like around here. So in this thigh they would go around here. Okay, now I think they look more balanced with each other. I suspect we're gonna need to give her a little more of a waist. So we're gonna grab all of this. We're gonna copy it. Sorry. We're gonna copy and paste, and we're gonna bring it down so we can see a little bit of a waist, right? Now let's keep going. Okay, so I would apply the same logic from all of this to the rest of the body. So let's sample the color. And what we're going to do is apply this sort of dogma, you know, the tapered teardrop dogma of the muscles. And really what it's all about is identifying where in the body this takes shape and how. So you identify that in the arm, the bulgy part of the teardrop shape is going to be around this part, right? And the more tapered, the more slender part is going to be towards the wrist. So you're going to lose this chunk of material. Your wrist was too thick. Now we apply the same to the upper arm. It's going to be tapering down towards the elbow. It's going to bulge out a little bit. And You know, it's actually not going to bulge out that much in this case, because from a certain angle this part looks super flat. Now we're going to curve up the shoulder a little bit, and we can work on the boobs now. Okay, so I'm going to ignore these bangs of hair for now, just to explain something super important here. So if underneath things go as I suspect, then what you would draw if we didn't have those bangs there would be something like this, right? Where this little pinch of skin and material, which should at the maximum be here, yours goes up and goes like up to here, possibly higher up. This can't be, right? You need a bunch of distance between the upper shoulder and where this bit of skin behind the boob pinches into the torso. So you're going to need to make this like a wider distance. And what's really useful for that is creating sort of like a shape for the shoulder. So this is the shoulder right here. Then it curves and it joins into the chest, into the neck, right? Oh, sorry, I made it a little too straight. Now it shouldn't come in at an angle like this. It should taper up. So she has shoulder muscles that, of course, are not that well defined. They are very soft because we want her to look very feminine, right? But they are there, and they should be there at the other side. So we're gonna show them here, right? So this bit of material we lose, absolutely. It goes away. It's actually all right. Now this little detail, I'm gonna keep a little sample of my sketching color up here, right? So this triangle, of course, is super important, right? It's where the it's where the boobs meet. Hold on a second. Okay, so this triangle is super important, of course, is because it's there because the shapes of the boobs clash against each other and they form a shadow. You identify that which is great. But here's the thing. This is too close to where the clavicles meet. And your clavicles were going down. These here are your clavicles. They're going downwards and to the middle, and they're meeting with they're almost meeting with this shape, right? That doesn't really look good. You need some extra space around here. I'm going to show you. Alright, so the clavicles are a very complex object. I like to make them meet going upwards. Okay, sorry, I had to take a pause. I'm gonna probably cut that, but I had to take a pause. My daughter was crying. She was a little sad about something. Anyway, so I like to make the clavicles meet. Fix the microphone. I like to make the clavicles meet, sort of curving up into the center, right? And let's make this more gray. Actually, let's just kind of delete all of this. Alright, so this area, this whole area of the chest is really, really, really crucial, because this is where most people's eyes will go to immediately when looking at your picture. I'd say that this is second only to the eyes. Like people's eyes are gonna be drawn towards the chest and the face. Those are the two like most important parts of the piece. Pretty much always. I'm not sure if let's merge this actually. Why is it not merged? I'm not completely sure which one is more important, if chest or eyes. As in, I'm not sure which do commissioners look at first. I would suspect that they look at the breasts first, but it's hard to know. Goddamn. Copy paste. So I just saw the message you sent me, Luz, which says you wanted the breasts a little bigger. So I'm gonna enlarge them. Gonna make them bigger for you. Probably like this big is fine. And I shouldn't have grabbed the clavicles there. Grabbed the clavicles by accident. Let's make them a little smaller. A bit up here. Right, so you want your clavicles to be resting at the very top. Think of them as a little chain of mountains that are resting at the end of some great plains, which is a chest, right? And these are rolling hills. So let me grab the color for a second. Okay, so what you want is this area right here. I would separate this from the breast. This is like a little square. It's a bit square, but it's not like super square. Right, so this area, this great plain, these would be the pec, the pectoral muscle. And you can see this like super well defined in women who are bodybuilders. Their pecs get like super well defined, and then the boob is kind of hanging from the pec. Of course, you don't want that in your super plump lady. You want a very smooth, soft transition between the rolling hills of the breast and the great plains of the pecs. And the great plains of the pecs end in the little chain of mountains, the little mountain range of the clavicles up here. So it's like a little landscape, right? They create a shadow under them. This little shadow, this little shadow. The main peaks are these two peaks, right? And they just go down and create another little shadow here. They help create it with the help of the volume of the shoulder and the volume of the great plains, which, like, this is not flat, right? This is not flat. This is a curve. It's a curve that goes kind of like this, you know? So if it was a 3D mesh, it would be curved. Sorta like this, right? It's a curved plane that tucks under the boobs. It tucks under the other plane, tucks under the clavicle up here, and under the shoulder. So you gotta really take into account that this is a curve, right? It's curving out. Now, we're not gonna see most of that, but we're gonna see the effects of that being there, which is pretty much true for most of what we do in the body. Most of what we do in the body is just what little effect can be read on the skin from stuff that's going on under the skin. So with the clavicles, it goes exactly like that. And with the knees, with the shoulders, with everything, it goes exactly like that. You're just seeing signs of something that's going on under the skin. Stuff that pushes up against the skin or makes the skin dimple down into a little pinch or a little crevasse. You know? Okay. Let's. Oh no, I did this again. What is this? No. Oh, what's going on? I hate when this happens. This no. I don't know why that happens, but it's so weird when it happens. I can't do anything. No, why is this happening? What? Why is this? Oh, oh, of course, of course, of course, of course. Because I was. Oh, now I know, right? Hey, this is great. I learned something because I was acting on a group. Then the little folder showing me that I'm acting on a group shows up, and it confuses me. But it's all fine. I was just acting in a group. All right. Sorry about that. As you can see, I still have a lot to learn. There's plenty that I need to learn. All right. So now let's grab this and keep up with the work. So the breast, I enlarged them, right, because you wanted them bigger. Now I'd say this is a good position for the little pinch that forms where the breast, the shoulder, and the pec meet. You see? All of these shapes meet and create that little pinch over there, that little pinch of skin. And it's going to be quite obvious when we shade. When we shade, we're going to make it like super pinchy. And that's going to make it look very, very good. Because it's going to make her look very real. The better you can do those pinches in the skin, those little folds, those little crevasses, the more real your picture will look, which sounds funny when we're talking about characters that are like angels or demons or half animal, half human creatures, you know. But as I said before, even in this context, even taking into account that we're talking about like fantastic characters, the eye still appreciates realism. The eye still appreciates to see a shape that is believable. And I see that constantly. As I told you before, the most successful commission artists that I see, they really take good care of their anatomy in their drawings. They don't slack. Even if they're doing like super fantastic creatures. Okay, so now I think these little pinches are too close to the belly button. They need to be a little further. Now we're going to see some shadow here. I'm going to remove as many elements as I can that hide anatomy. So I'm just going to leave the little cups that hold her breasts, but I'm going to remove that piece in the middle just so I can show you where I place the shading. All right, here we go. So let's trace this. Okay, so I don't know exactly how the muscles of the shoulders work, but I do know that there's a shape that folds, comes down under here, folds, behind the pec, and most of what goes on the muscle map of the arm kind of comes from under that little fold and extends towards the elbow. So you would have something that looks kind of like this, right? I think this would be the bicep, which bulges. I know that in order to see the bulge, it kind of needs to have this shape. As I said, we always follow that canon of muscles having like a tear shape, or the shape of, I don't know, some kind of fruit, some kind of vegetable thing that is pinched on both sides and it bulges out in the middle. I'm sure you can think of an example of that. Right now I'm blanking out. Alright, so all of these shapes, all of this comes together to create the elbow. I think this elbow went, this forearm went a little too far, so I'm just gonna bring it back a little bit. And again, we're gonna apply our logic of this shape. Like almost everything in the body is gonna have this shape in some way, right? Sometimes it's gonna bulge a little more, a little less. It's gonna be longer, shorter. Maybe this bulge is gonna be closer to the lower part or closer to the upper part. Those are the it can change in those ways, but it's always gonna be this shape. Muscles are always gonna have this shape. They're gonna clip into bone from here, clip into bone from here, but always they're gonna hold this shape. So that's very, very useful to keep in mind. Oh, don't do that. Don't use the eraser in this particular case, because I'm only painting on the same layer. So when I'm quote unquote erasing, I'm actually just painting with gray, right? I'm not actually erasing. So I made a mistake there. All right, so whatever muscle shenanigans is going on in here, I know that it's gonna have to taper and it's gonna have to turn into the elbow. Now the elbow, it's gonna behave much like the knee. It's gonna be like one block, right? It's gonna connect with another block that comes from under. And you can imagine that this looks like a knee. This looks like that shape that I made. It's this shape. The upper part of the knee, the lower part of the knee, right? The elbow is going to behave in much the same way, because it's also a place where bones meet and connect with cartilage and other tiny bones. This part is going to be composed, of course, of several tear-shaped muscles. I believe it's one big one, like I'm doing here, right? These are the fibers. This would be where it clips into bone. There's one big one, and then another one a little small, which tucks under. There you go. So this one kind of goes and folds under the other one, which is much bigger. It may be like this, it may be slightly different, and this is where the magic of everything happens. Actually, the viewer, the person who consumes the drawing that you're doing, doesn't really care exactly, precisely where the muscles go or where they are. That's for us to care about. That's for artists to care about. I really appreciate when drawings show that the artist knows a ton about muscles and bones, and when it shows that the artist like really knows actually where everything goes in the body. I really appreciate and respect that, and I am very slowly learning where everything goes in the body. But I assure you, I am in no rush to learn that, because I learned a long time ago that all that matters is that the drawing looks good. If it looks good enough, people are not going to think too much whether the muscles that you're showing make sense or not. That's just the reality of what it is. Now, some people are way more perfectionists than this, and they would say that I'm a fool because if I dedicated time to actually learn everything correctly first, then my drawings would improve greatly. That might be true, but honestly, I don't think it makes like a whole ton of difference in my work life, because all that people care about is that their drawings look believable. So even if this muscle doesn't really go exactly as I did it, or if it goes like completely different, this maybe, let's try it a different way, just to show what I mean, okay? Let's grab this color again. Okay. Now I know that the forearm looks kind of like this. I know that it has like a bulgy part under. I know that the elbow comes here, right? And I know that there's like a little bulgy part here where there's some either whole muscles or just the ends of certain muscles that just rest here. I know that this bulge exists. I know that this cut exists. I know that the bicep comes up here, right? And I know that I can soften all of those features so the arm looks more feminine. I know that there's a dimple that forms here. I know this for a fact. I know there's a dimple there. I know the elbow is very bony and it can show like a hard shadow here where it bends. I know that there's a dimple here, there's a dimple here, right? I remember that. I remember that from looking at tons of drawings and images in general of women bending their arms. I can remember all those images and make an average of what I remember. And I can make a mental map of the muscles that I imagine create these shapes, right? So before I did this, right? Like the huge one which folds in this way. But what if it folds in a different way? What if the big one is actually this one, like this, and the other one is sort of subordinate and it folds here? What if these shapes are the actual muscles that we're seeing, right? These are the fibers, they join into the bone. These are fibers as well, they join into the bone. Right? Like actually, what if they go this way or in several different other distributions? What if there's another one actually here, right? Maybe that's too much. I don't think there's like 3 big chunky pieces of muscle in the forearm. I think that's pretty much incorrect. I'm almost sure. But my whole message with this is that it really doesn't actually matter, right? Honestly. And of course, if you're an amazing perfectionist, incredibly knowledgeable artist who knows exactly where every single muscle goes, and you're looking at this and you're thinking, I am complete trash for drawing in this way, I respect that, honestly. You know what? Maybe you're right, but people like looking at the stuff I draw and they like to buy it. So that's pretty much all I care about, honestly. And I got to the point of doing drawings that people like to buy by only worrying about how the drawing looks. I don't worry about anything else like that. The most important thing is, does the drawing look good? Yes or no, right? And everything else is secondary. Now, every other knowledge you have about the body that helps you make the body look better is useful, right? But the most important knowledge is how to make it look better, not how to make it look precisely biologically correct or realistic. All right. So I think that's extremely true of how I do shoulders, and I do wish that with time I become better at doing shoulders, because I know that's one of my weak areas, as are feet. I'm not very good with feet. I am trying to learn because feet are extremely important, as you probably know, in our business, our business. Hold on a second. Gotta copy and paste. Right. So that's starting to look pretty hot, actually, if I say so myself. Okay, here's another. Actually, you know what? Let's make this visible, and let's align it a little bit with the other one. So this one should be smaller, and it should fit kind of like this. I think this is correct. Yeah. Let's make it full opacity. Yeah. You can do this on your own as well, on your own iPad. You can just take the. I'm gonna send you this JPEG, so you can overlay it on top of your character, and you can take a look at how different it is and where, like precisely where it's different. All right, so let's just finish this little area. Whoa, sorry about that. Didn't mean to make a mistake. Procreate. Sorry. Okay. All right, so this is one of my weak areas, actually. I am trying to learn how to better make the arm bend and the shoulder bulge up, but all I know for now is that it does bulge up, right? So we're gonna try to make that happen, make it bulge up a little bit, and we're gonna try to keep all these curves as subtle as possible, because we don't want, well, I think, I'm not sure what your plan is, but I would guess that we don't want her to look super buff. We don't want her to look cut, right? We want her to look almost a little doughy. At least with my crowd, what I've seen is that they appreciate a squishy woman. They like some squishiness, some doughiness, especially on the belly. I've seen that a lot of my crowd enjoys a bit of a doughy belly, like almost pudgy, on the borderline. Like, just if you added like 5%, it would be pudgy, but it isn't, right? It's like almost pudgy. Probably would be pudgy for French model standards, actually, which are like scarecrows. not really women anymore, just scarecrows. But yeah, compared to those, mine would be pudgy, definitely. Right, I think the head is a little too big, like just a smidge, just a tiny bit too big. So we're gonna grab it real quick and shrink it just a little bit. Oh, I made the same mistake again. To copy and paste it first, so I don't get those weird lines that show up, those little artifacts. There's a lot that I still don't understand about Procreate and how it works. So I'll learn it with time, and as I become better and more versed in how it works, I'll be more useful to you, of course, Luz. Right, just a little smaller. I saw a trick once, or a tip, I should say. The tip is like the head should comfortably fit within the chest. If you can fit it inside the chest comfortably, there's like plenty of room. Well, not plenty of room, but there's some room. Like it just fits inside the chest. If it does, then you're at a good size. If you can fit two heads side to side inside the chest, then it's definitely too big. The chest is too big, or the heads are too small. Either or, right? Now, the reason why I tilted her a little bit is because this looks really good. This makes your characters look less stiff. So you should try to tilt the axis of your characters as often as possible, and as tastefully as possible, right? So one of the axes is this one, shoulder to shoulder. That's one axis of the body. Another one is hip to hip, right? And the final axis is like ear to ear, or the axis of the eyes. So we're gonna trace it like so. So as you can see, this is actually slightly tilted. This one, let's call this A. This one's pretty flat. B is pretty flat, which is fine. If A is if A was a little bit more tilted, it would be fine. If B is like super flat, that's why I instinctively tried to tilt C, to like move this around a little bit, make it look more alive. If you pay attention to models, pictures of models, and pictures done by very, very experienced commission artists, you're gonna notice that they tilt the axes. They tilt these axes quite a bit to make the figures look dynamic. All right, you'll do well to try it out on your own. Probably be really careful with it. No, actually, you know what? You're learning. You should not be careful with it like at all. Let's. Oh, I was very lucky. There's actually like nothing too bad here. Okay, so I'm gonna show you something here. I have to correct this actually. This is for someone that goes by Battle Juice, a really cool username actually, cool person too. So this has some interesting stuff going on with the axes. So here's one axis. This would be the two nodes of the axis. This would be A, right? It's very tilted. I tilted it because it was too stiff, the previous sketch that I sent. So I decided to take this with a lasso and just tilt it. Here we go. Here we got another axis. This one is pretty straight, but it's not like fully straight, shoulder to shoulder, right? But then I took the head and I really tilted her quite a bit. Do you see? So we have like a little path, like a snaking shape. That shape is really, really, really good. It looks really good on characters. It's very popular. If you try to find these S shape, this like snaky shape in random commissions that you see around, you're gonna start noticing that it is pretty common. People use this a lot to make characters look more alive, more flirtatious, like cuter, more casual in how they're standing, because as like let's call this the snake shape, right? Yes. So let's make a spectrum here, right? And this is the other S actually, because this is straight, right? So if the character is standing straight, right, and all the axes are like perfectly horizontal, the character is gonna feel stiff. It's gonna feel stilted. It's gonna feel like not relaxed at all. It's gonna feel very serious, very rigid, right? So the more you go to this, let's actually call this, let's call this rigid. So the further you go to that, the less sexy it is, right? And the more you go towards the S shape, right, the more relaxed, the more soft, smooth, confident even characters look. They can even look arrogant, cocky, just because you gave them these posture. So you should try to play around with this as much as you want, as much as you can. Of course, try to make them do something with their hands, but that's other stuff. Let's not worry about that too much for now. All right, let's carry on with this. Now, something that I've started working on recently is how the hair falls onto the body. So let's clean up the shape of the head for a little bit. I'm gonna make her chin a little more pointy, just because that's how I like it. There's really not. You can do that however you want, but I like slightly pointier chins actually. Sometimes very pointy, sometimes like almost sharp. Sometimes I go all out with that. But yeah, I do tend to lean towards pointy with the chin. Okay. Now I do this very often. It's like the long chunks of hair that kind of fall into the body and sort of softly bend over or like hook or loop upon contact with the skin, and they just rest on her body. I've been doing that like a lot recently, and I find that it looks pretty good. So I would recommend trying it out, making the hair rest on the body. I would recommend. I don't know if you've messed around with this too much, but let's go to the little wrench, and let's go to preferences, and let's go to pressure and smoothing. Right. So these are my settings for pressure and smoothing. These are my normal settings for when I'm like freehand drawing, and I crank this up. I make this value 20. I'm pointing with the pen. So dumb. I make stabilization. Well, I make the one that's at 15%. I make it 20 when I'm doing line art. So it's like more. It's helping me more. It's making my lines like even more precise when I'm doing line art exclusively. Because when I'm sketching or freehand drawing, these values tend to get on my way instead of helping. I find that they can rest at 15, 10, 10 to help me like as much as they can before tripping me over and like standing on the way of how I'm gesturing with the pen. I find that when I make it 20, 15, 15, they help out a lot. They are really, really good at helping me cleaning the line with those values. But then if I'm going to do something that's more freehand, more expressive, and having those values, then those values start to become intrusive, right? So when the drawing is like ready for cleanup, I move the values up. I add 5% to each of this, just an OCD thing that I have. I really don't like. I like doing things in increments of 5 or 10. I don't like any other number, right? But of course you can play around with this until you find like exactly how you like it. I really, really recommend playing around with this until you have found a combination of values that really helps you sketch the way you want. It helps you feel like your skill has gone up, actually. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a feeling where you feel like all of a sudden you are better at drawing. All of a sudden your lines tremble less. You have to make less attempts to do the line that you wanted to do, and it looks less shaky and less bumpy in general, right? But right before it becomes intrusive, right before it becomes where you wanted to do a bang of hair in a certain way, and because this is very constraining, it made your stroke go in a different direction than what you wanted, right? So I don't know if all that stuff I said made sense. I hope it did. But anyway, you should play around with it, get a feel for it. So okay, let's work on this face. right away, this line shouldn't be there in the middle, okay? That line actually shouldn't exist at all. You shouldn't make that line, or try to avoid doing that line like as much as possible. I think the lips are fine. Let's see. Let's shade the upper lip. A good way to work on the face is like making shapes first before going to line, because the face is very, very, very delicate. It makes us do weird things. I have seen that you have this happen to you, which tells me you're very, very good, because I think this happens when you're good. You tend to mess up when in the areas that you care more about, right? Because I saw a drawing of Anja Woman that you did, and the feathers and the helmet and all the stuff that wasn't like her features, her boobs, her face, all that other stuff you drew very, very well. It's like all the other stuff was at a skill level of 20, but the face and the boobs and the hips and the hands, all of that was at like a 10, right? But why does that happen? It happens because we get inside our heads and we get I'm actually convinced this is real, actually, by the way. We get in our heads and we get anxiety with the parts of the drawing that we want to look good the most, that we care about the most, and we think are the hardest. We kind of we kind of put them on a pedestal, and we care about them so much that we end up getting too nervous and messing up. I'm convinced this is real. I'm convinced this happens because I have seen that on myself, and I have seen that on many, many people that I consider very, very talented in all stages of their artistic journey. Some beginning, some in the middle, some like super advanced, and I constantly see that when there's a part of the drawing that they really, really care to get right, that's the part that they mess up, right? So I think a good solution for that with the face, because most people want the face to look good, right? Like almost everybody cares like super, super a lot about the face, like more than the rest of the drawing. So to combat that a little bit, I recommend using shapes of color and shading instead of line. Try to build with shapes, with bodies of shading as much as possible before going into line. So I know there's a shadow under the nose, that's why I create this, and the shadow has that little shape. It's a little square. I know that happens, so I just do that shape. I know that if she has bangs, then she's gonna have some shadows like under her bangs. So I do that to try and start blocking out areas of her face, so I see less empty space. Empty space can also really make us nervous when we're drawing, especially when we don't know a lot about shading and anatomy, and we don't have that much practice doing the volumes of the face. So the more empty face that you see, the more nervous you can become. So maybe you should profile it a little bit with some shadows around here. Right now I'm using this one, the one that I named the one brush, right? I'm using that one to do this part. I'm just creating little dark areas where I know that I'm going to need them, right? Now I can maybe work on these bangs a little bit. And I'm not sure what's going on with her hair, like or if she has some kind of accessory on her head, but I think her head went a little bit too high. think it should go like at like tops up to here, and it should start like her hair should start falling from up there. No higher than that, because otherwise it looks like a Code Lyoko character. I don't know if you ever saw Code Lyoko, but they have like huge foreheads, gigantic foreheads. Very, very weird art style. Very strange. It's a Korean animated show done in 3D. It's from the early 2000s. Very, very weird characters. Did not like them. Didn't like the art style. Didn't like the color choices. Very muddy, like grayish, very, very washed out palette to everything. And yeah, just very strange in general. It's, you know, the most important message that I have for you is that I didn't like Code Lyoko. Okay, it's very, very important. It's the most important part of this video. I did not enjoy Code Lyoko one bit, and I had to sit through it because it was what they showed on Jetix before Shaman King, and I really liked Shaman King. Was it the stuff that came before Shaman King? I don't remember. Maybe it came before Martin Mystery or some other show that I liked, and I just had to sit through it. I just had to endure Code Lyoko before I could watch my actual shows that I liked. Alright, I'm going to just do a pass around the body and shade a little bit. Just separate areas that are going to be a little dark. Like this, like so. I know it looks like super rough in the middle and everything, but we can make it look very smooth very easily. So these are generally the areas that you want dark versus the ones that you want shaded. Alright, I'm going to just give you a sample of that. And you can work on top of that sample at your leisure. You can change some parts around if you want, or just stick to my sample. But it's going to be a nice reference of like where stuff goes dark versus where it gets shaded. We're always going to want our shading to come slightly from above the model. Just as a general rule, that looks better. Especially hands are their own thing. Okay, I'm gonna make like a super simple shape here for the hands. If I talk to you about hands on this one, this one would take like an extra hour of me talking about the hands. So we're gonna leave that for some other time. They are the hands are the worst. Hands are the worst. They're like doing an entire little monster on top of the drawing that you're doing. It's a little monster that has 5 legs coming out of a weird squarish body that's actually muscular on its own, and it has like a lot of cuts and folds and crevices that you have to take care of. It's horrendous. It's like a little monster. It's a little anatomical monster that you have to add, and you have to add 2 of them when you're unlucky and the client wants both hands on display. So it's absolutely terrible. It's a nightmare. I can make a different video for hands. Let's not spend time on hands on this one. Of course, it's not that I'm scared of hands. I think I am pretty confident with hands, and I'm sure that I can draw them very well at this point. But it wasn't without pain. It was very, very painful to learn how to draw hands properly. I had to draw many hundreds of pairs of hands in order to get it right. So yeah. All right, I'm just gonna like quickly and relaxedly shade this, just so I can give you a reference of where things go dark and where things go light. That reference is gonna help you a lot. shading your own stuff, right? So of course you want the armpit to be a focus of shadow. You want a lot of you want the armpit to be pretty much the darkest area of the combination of the arm and the torso, because that's where it falls, and it creates a very strong shadow. You want a little shadow here at this pinch. You want a little shadow here. Generally, you want to create the shadow for the cleavage as a residual thing. You don't want to actively make this a shady part, but from adding the light of the other parts, you're gonna make it shady. I'm gonna show you exactly how that works in a second. Let me switch to sketchy. Let's just with the eyes, with the shape of the eyes, there's a lot of style going on with yours versus mine. We have very different styles regarding the shape of the eyes, so I'm really not going to touch too much on that. But I do think you had them too close together. I do think that they were pinched together a little bit, and it makes her look funny. So I think you should be very careful, remembering that little empty space between the eyes. This shape, this arch that I'm signaling there, that's very important. That area there is very, very important to let the eyes have a break from each other, right? Just don't let them wander too close to each other, because she's gonna look funny if you do. Now with the shape, with the tilt of the eyes, which all of that has precise naming. I don't know or remember any of that. I saw it on the video, like exactly what you call how tilted down or upwards the eyes are. That has a technical term. I have no idea. You can research that to learn some more about it. I can tell you, you shouldn't tilt them up too much. You shouldn't. Let me show you with white. Right. You shouldn't take this end of the eye and like pinch it up too much, because then she looks weird again. A lot of it's funny, but a lot of this is just avoiding making her look weird. It's like 90% of this is avoiding making your character look weird in any way. That's like your worst enemy. If she looks weird, you lost, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to make her look like not weird. And sometimes we spend a lot of time doing it and she still looks weird. And that's how this is. That's this business. Right, so the profile of the nose, if you really want to mark it out, it should be a shadow. You should try to make it a shadow. Try not to make it a line. Okay? Try to remember where in the face you see shadow versus light, and that should help you out. Now let's start shading her from up, from down up. Start shading her. I'm gonna just add some more shadows around the edges. Just kind of toasting her on the sides like she's a piece of meat. That's pretty much what I'm doing. Just so when I add the light, it's gonna contrast very nicely with this. Check this out. All right, so I sample this gray. I'm sure you know how to do that by holding this button that's here in the middle of the two sliders. You hold that, you touch the canvas with the pencil, and you grab whatever color was there, right? And I'm gonna make it much lighter, and I'm gonna use one of my favorite brushes now, the one I call the One True Inker. That brush is amazing. I created it. Well, I didn't create any of these brushes. These were shared to me by a dear friend of mine who works in a AAA studio. Well, actually works. he works for a company that works for AAA studios, and I think the company specializes on art. It's a studio that specializes on art and artists. But anyway, I'm going too much into the weeds. So he just showed me a bunch of amazing brushes that him and his friends use, and I have been tweaking those brushes, changing some settings of them just to make them fit perfectly for me. The two best creations that I've made from that base of those brushes that he gave me are these two: the One True brush and the One True inker. As I told you before, the One True brush is amazing for freehand painting, and we're gonna do some of that in a bit. And the One True inker is amazing for cleaning line art and making solid shapes for whatever purpose you have. So we're gonna see a couple of the purposes right now. So no layer. Now I know that I wanna lighten up this whole thigh area, so I'm gonna create a shape. And this technique, if you learn to do this, you're gonna get boosted in your quality quite a bit. I'm very proud of this process that I'm gonna show you, because I think it works very, very well in Procreate. Okay, so this is the body of light. We're gonna drag and drop the color, make it solid. And now with the eraser, we're gonna set the eraser to in the airbrushing folder of Procreate, and this one actually comes with Procreate. In the airbrushing section, you're gonna find soft brush. You're gonna select soft brush, and we're gonna make it big, and we're gonna start removing light from the sides until we have just a nice smooth body of light that runs right through the middle of the leg down into the knee. Just like this. Now we're gonna make it smaller, quite a bit smaller actually, so we can profile the knee. There you go. That looks pretty nice. Let's make another one and repeat. So now we're gonna make this part, we're gonna make this part like this, blammo, and we're gonna start erasing just a little bit. Now, if you're wondering why I'm doing it this way, I have realized that for some reason that I have not identified yet, Procreate is better at subtracting opacity and like pixels, like subtracting the shape that you created. It's better doing that than adding. So if I had a brush and I was adding light, I would see all kinds of weird artifacting on the body of color that I'm working on. I have realized that I don't see that artifacting with this process, which means that it artifacts at adding, but it doesn't artifact at subtracting. I don't know why. That's a little bit too technical for me personally. I may find out in the future an explanation. It may have to do with the fact that my iPad is from like 2016. It's a very old one, right? So maybe mine is suffering while rendering when I add versus when I remove. I'd have to try this out in a new model whenever I'm able to save up to buy a newer one, which I really want to do. But maybe I'll find out then what's going on here. But I know exactly what's going on. What's going on is that it's artifacting, right? And that artifacting, it messes it up. It's too annoying. Makes it too hard to do. Makes it take like twice as long to get a smooth surface. When you can get a very quickly smooth surface by just removing. I started doing the removal versus adding because it was more comfortable to do that on Photoshop on the computer and I started doing it here. When I started with Procreate, I tried just adding, just painting, because it's more comfortable to just paint on Procreate, more freehand, less technical, right? But I found out the problem about the artifacting, so I went right back to my old Photoshop technique of just adding a shape of color and working on top of that. Right, so I have, now let's do one here. There we go. So this is another chunk. If you pay attention to where I'm making these shapes and how I'm shaping them, you'll see what my mental map of the body is. And you can learn a little bit from that, tweak it to fit your style better. Of course, you can shape parts of the body like super differently to me and arrive at an acceptable result as well. Because of what I told you earlier in this video, it really all that matters is that the drawing looks good. So you don't really have to stick to how I map the body, but you can use it as a base to understand it better. Alright, so now I know that I'm gonna need a little one here, a little chunk of light. Now think of these as chunks of clay that you're adding on top of your sculpture. Think of this as sculpting, and you're gonna get much better results. Try to think of this as a 3D object, and you're gonna get much better results. So this is a shape that wait a second. Alright, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. We're gonna polish this in another way. Let's make another shape, another layer. Blammo. Here we have a bit of, like a chunk of muscle that I know. Oh, did you hear that? I hope you did. Someone has a big motorcycle. Big. Makes a big noise when he goes vroom vroom. Someone has a huge motorcycle. Huge. So impressive. Anyway, I hope you heard that, because he really wants everyone to hear. That's what he wants. So I know there's a chunk of muscle that rests here on the side of the thigh, and I know that it creates that cut or dimple or crevasse. I know it exists, so I just place it. And this technique is really good for creating those like soft little cuts in the skin. Let's do the abdomen. Okay, so the light is falling in this way. All right, let's fuse this. I can't use too many layers either because of the age of my iPad, so I create these chunks of light and then I just fuse them all together when I'm happy. When I'm happy with how they look, I just take them and fuse them. Now for the tummy. We know it has it should have a really rounded, satisfactory shape. Very enticing, very plump shape. At least for my crowd, of course, as I've mentioned a few times. Like, really, it's everything I do is shaped to the preferences of my crowd. You're gonna find that there's many different types of crowds that enjoy many different types of things, but the really doughy, plump tummy that's like just percentages away from being officially chubby, you know, That's very, very popular. It's super popular. So it's a good idea to learn how to do it in general. Even if it's not going to be like your default, it's probably a good idea just learn how to do it. Right, so this I'm just chunking out and separating what I know has to be lit up in this position versus what I know shouldn't be lit up. I'm gonna use the cuadrado R, which just means square R in Spanish. This one I love this one, Luz. I really love that. For freehand painting and for like solving quick shapes that I need to solve. It's amazing. I really enjoy that one. So I recommend that you familiarize yourself with that one, with Cuadrado, and you learn to use it as much as possible because it gets you some really nice results. Of course, everyone's process is different. Maybe you don't find it as useful as I do. Maybe your process is going to be like super different to mine. Who knows? But that's a good one. That's one I recommend quite a bit. And with this one, we can just sample some colors and flatten. Try not to use the smudge tool as much. Try to solve your color problems and your shading problems by sampling and painting over, because that's much better practice than just smudging. All right? That just makes you better. I am convinced of that, so I recommend that. I use the Cuadrado R with quite low opacity. As you can see, I lowered it quite a bit. And with it, I can just separate shapes. Sample, constantly sample. Use the drawing that I'm working on as the palette, because all the tones that I need are already there. So there's no need for an external palette. There you go. And now we can do something that I really enjoy, which is a nice blending trick. Actually, let's make this like more complete before doing that, because that trick is really good. I'm gonna choose even a lighter tone. Ooh, again, made that mistake again, but now I know. Oh, I'm never gonna be scared again. Now I know what's going on. Alright, so I know that my lightest part of the thigh is gonna be there. As you can see, this is gonna be the lightest part of the knee, right at the middle. And you're gonna have some little dashes of light here. We're gonna blend this a little bit just so it doesn't look that sharp. We don't want any sharp transitions in our drawing. We want very smooth transitions, as smooth as possible, just so the body itself looks smooth, as smooth as possible. So we paint over this. And maybe we even could have like a little spotlight here. There you go, it's already looking cool. So we're gonna make sure that everything is like one fuse layer, and we're gonna select this whole thing, this whole chunk of leg. We're gonna copy and paste, and we're gonna use the adjustments and the Gaussian blur, and we're gonna blur this until we feel that it blends nicely. All right, so I'm gonna leave it at probably not that much, probably 6% is fine. Look, it already looks smoother. Now let's fuse. And let's go again. So this transition here is a little harsh between that upper chunk and the lower chunk. It's a little harsh. So I'm going to select this area, the area where the harshness is. I'm going to copy and paste. We're going to adjust Gaussian blur. And we're going to just make it as smooth as we need it to be. And maybe with the eraser, we take a bit off from the edges, from where it shouldn't be that smooth. And look at that. We can smooth things over. Like, check this out. When we zoom in, like this leg area is just a mess, right? Because it's full of harsh strokes where we put the light. You can this all of this that I'm telling you is a little bit advanced, but I like to think of art process as a holistic thing. Like you can't just pick and choose like little bits of info to think about. It's a whole thing. It's always the whole thing, is what I feel like. All right. So I mean, that's why some tweaks about the shape of the body also have to do with shading, because actually shading is what makes the body looks the way it looks at the end. So anyway, I think everything goes together. You can't just separate subjects. So that's why this video might be a little scattered, but I know that it's going to be useful for you. So again, I just chose that chunk and I'm gonna smoothen it as much as possible. Again, not using the smudge tool. Smudge tool is super useful, but when you should, this might be a little pretentious to say, but you should only use it after you've gotten good, right? Because it can turn into a crutch, and you don't want the smudge tool. You don't want any advanced, like elaborate code using tool, like heavily code using a tool to shape your process or to shape your understanding of lighting, volume, depth, and shape. Those things, this I'm sounding like a complete fart smelling asshole, but those things are sacred to the process of an artist. All right, those are the basics, those are the fundamentals. Your personal deep understanding of shape, of size, of depth, of color, of values, of volume, how to make something look puffy, plump, how to make something look flat, how to make something look as if it's behind instead of forward. That's sacred. Those are the fundamentals. You don't want the super advanced tools to make you grow in a weird way, right? It's maybe this is a little too. I don't know if any of this is landing, but you don't want that. You don't want the super advanced tools to be part of how you grow at first. You want to grow without them, and then when you have reached a certain maturity in your process, you can welcome those amazing tools and let them be what they are meant to be: incredibly useful and time-saving and interesting to be used in certain ways, but after you have learned the fundamentals, right? Anyway, I hope that makes sense in some way. I don't know. Let's blur this knee so I know. Oh, I messed up. I messed up. First copy, then paste, then blur. Now, why are we doing this? Because this is going to create a copy of the shape that we selected, put it on top of the drawing, and it's going to blur on top. So it's going to use information that is there, and it's going to build on top of it. It's going to use residual tones to make the general shape, the general body look like much better. That's a little esoteric, a little hard to explain, but it is amazing, and it works great. Now I'm going to choose... Oh, no. Oh no, actually, you know what? Yeah, I choose this whole shape because there is harshness there, right? So copy, paste, blur. There you go. And we can maybe remove some here from the top. Nice. It's starting to take shape. Maybe fuse. We have some harshness here. Now, harshness is not always bad. Sometimes you want like a sharp edge between two parts of the drawing. Sometimes you want that. You're gonna learn when you want that and how you want that along the way. This very second, I don't want any of that in these parts of the drawing. Right, so now I can just repeat the process as many times as I want. I can grab this whole chunk. I actually want this chunk to be blurred again. Copy, paste, blur. Look at that. We could even... I think this is where it looks good. Actually, we can shape it to like warp. We can take that and shape it. The light area can be shaped. I think I want it longer. And then I want to erase from the parts that it went too far. For instance, it hid this little dimple area that I really liked. So let's just delicately remove, you know, as I did before. And there you go, it's starting to take shape. Now let's show how I would shape the area of the boobs in this way. Brush, let's go to the one to inker, new layer. Now this is extremely important. This is where the money's at. Actually, like actually really, this is where the money's at. Well, of course it is in the ass and the hips and the pubic region and everything. Of course. But man, does the chest and the boobs carry weight. Man, oh man, those... You can't overstate how important these are. So this is going to be my general shape. I mentioned earlier that this is composed of several shapes, right? It's the roundness of the boob, that's like one shape, one distinct object. Then you have the plane of the pec. And, well, actually, this is just those two things. This is boob and pec combined in one. I'm going to paint it, of course, and then I'm going to remove light from what it needs to be removed. Sometimes you need the eraser to be quite big, so you remove very uniformly, very mechanically, and very precisely. There we go. There we go. So you need to curve over a little bit. Here it curves over, right? Here as well. Let's uniformly create the shape of the hill, right? It's very light up top, very dark where it dimples, where it like slopes down into the folded under area. I know that I'm talking nonsense. This is a lot like when musicians talk about sounds being crunchy, or right, like crunchy or sweet or silky or oily. I don't know, whatever musicians say about sounds, which of course makes sense to them. They, of course, it absolutely makes sense because they know what they're talking about, but I sure as hell don't, and I bet this sounds kind of like that. When I say shapes slope over or like fold under, that kind of language, you kind of just have to be in this in order to understand. Anyway, here's the basic shape of the boob pec combo. We can actually remove a little bit from here. If we want our boobs to feel like very pressed up, we need this shadowy bit to appear here in the pec. We really need that shadow. Otherwise, the boob doesn't feel pressed up against the body. It doesn't feel like the cups or the corset or the bikini top or whatever is holding them. If you don't create this shadow, which is showing up here on the pec, it's not gonna feel like the boob is being pressed up. So you really need to create that. All right. Let's create the other shape. And this is another thing. Weirdly, a certain part of the body cannot look good unless you have drawn all the neighbors well and made the neighbors look good as well. So the nose needs its frontiers, its borders in order to look good. The shape of the nose is shaped by the borders of the nose, and the same happens with the eye. The same happens with the lips. The same happens with the boobs, with the shoulder. It's extremely difficult to make one clavicle look good on its own. You kind of need the whole set. You need to show the neck muscles to look good. You need to show the pecs, the boobs. You need everything around the clavicles, everything doing its part to make everything else look good. This is going to be the last part. Of course, I'm really sorry. I made this like much longer than it needed to be. But I think this is going to be super useful for you. So, you know what? I don't regret making it so big. Making it so long, I mean. I had a little sleep there, looking at the boobs. Had a little sleep there while looking at the boobs. Alright. Alright, so the light, and this is important, the light is coming in this direction, right? You can tell by this. So the light comes in that direction. I have to shape this chunk accordingly. So I have to remove from the edges. Whoop, not too harshly. Don't be harsh. It's better to be very, very smooth and delicate at first, and then if we want some harsh, shiny bits, then we add them. Alright, so let's do the same here. Create that shadowy part of the pec just to make the illusion that the boobs are being pressed up against the chest. I removed too much. Gotta go back a little bit. Alright. Gotta be more smooth, more delicate. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. There we go. And as you can see, we're already forming this little valley between them, right? Now we're gonna create another layer and use the square with low opacity and big size, and we're gonna smoothen the planes. We're gonna smooth over the planes where they need smoothing over. Maybe we're gonna use sample tones that are found there in the planes, in the great planes of the chest. Sample, use it to smooth over. Remember, try to avoid the use of the highly advanced smudge tool. While you're learning, try to do everything on hard mode. Try to not use those tools as much as you can. And trust me, you'll become better by doing so. Alright, as you can see, I'm kind of smoothing over that place in the middle where they meet. I'm smoothing that over so you don't feel that harsh frontier between the two pecs. But then I'm being careful not to venture too low into the cleavage, which we do need to show that it's the clash of two big shapes, right? So this part is really like touch and go. This is really this is an area where you really have to come up with your own ways to solve this, as I have. I've created this way of creating those two big bodies of light and then smoothing over the places where they meet. You can do the same, and in the process you can probably come up with your own method which works best for you. That's always what happens. What happens is that you just look at how other artists do and you try it out yourself, but in the process of trying it you end up discovering ways that only work for you, and that you can do it, and that you can use to make everything look better. Right, as you can see, I'm just freehand painting this clavicle area, making a certain part more light, other parts less light, and then highlighting a little bit of the neck. As a general rule, the iPad has this weird gesture thing. When I'm close to one of the corners, if I touch it in a certain way, it just closes up the program, and I haven't learned how to not do that. Gotta learn that ASAP. But I haven't been able to find a solution for that. There you go. That's the clavicles area, pretty much shaded. Nice. Nice. Now we can think about the shoulder a little bit. And again, let's just freehand this. If it ends up looking too harsh, we can smoothen it over with the technique that I showed you. So selecting an area and then blurring it, and doing that very, very selectively until we have like exactly the amount of harshness that we need, exactly where we need it, and then everything looks right. This is another case of we want to smooth over the transition between the big chunk of light from the shoulder into the great planes of the chest, right? But we don't want to make this little crevasse disappear. We may want to make it less harsh a little bit, but we don't want to make it disappear. It's looking pretty good. Now, if we lost some punch to the light on the chest, while smoothing, then we can create another body of light like this. Because we really want that cleavage shape to feel defined, right? And it's not enough to just mark it with a darker color, which we will do as well, but that's not enough on its own. So what we want is to get this like hard punching light right on the edge. We want that. And we're fine with this little cut that forms up top. We're fine with that because the boobs are being like punched up against the chest. So there we go. Now we can make that on the other side as well. Just in case. Oh, we actually didn't lose much punchiness here. So we can just patch it up like so. There you go. And maybe after we're done doing like these paths of light, we can go over with an even brighter tone and use our powerful painter brush with low opacity to selectively create some like spotlights here, here, you see, here a little bit, and even back in the thigh. Maybe some harshness is in order. There we go. All right, let's close by doing a little bit of this on the face, and we can call it. I'm gonna sample this gray, create a new layer. Let me show you how I block out the face. Te amo. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien.
¿Encontraste tu ladito?
Sí.
¿Ya escogiste uno?
Ah, yo me lo comí.
Ah, okay. Te amo. Sorry about that. I was making sure my wife found her ice cream in the fridge. She already had it, so that's good. Alright, so this is how I block out the face. I create this shape for half of the face. Of course, fill it. Then smoothly remove. As you can see, same technique. This is the same. You can do this all over the body and create very smooth and consistent shading. Now, this is very time consuming, so I advise that interestingly enough, I advise that you don't learn it. I don't know. This is very time consuming, so it should be very expensive, but I mean, no one's gonna pay as much money as it actually costs to shade this in this way, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I'm trying to develop new, quicker techniques, so I don't spend that much time in each drawing. But it's very hard because I really like how it looks with this smooth shading. I really enjoy it. So it's tough. It's tough as nails to not like fall into the same old techniques that I always apply. It's very tough. But anyway, whatever, looks good. That's all that matters. Looks good, people love it, they're back for more, they want more, they help me out, so it works. If it looks good and people like it, it makes them come back, then what am I complaining about, right? Sure, it takes a long time, but looks really good. You can make the eraser big or small depending on what areas you're erasing, and I use that to make these little dimples on the edges of the mouth, which looks just, I mean, I really like how that looks. Look at that. Now let's fuse. And let's create the nose shape. Very, very easy. Just go over. It's like a little... Actually, you know what? Noses are a lot like fish in cooking. As much as you... The more you work on it, the worse. Just leave it alone. Just let it be as much as you can. Just create a little chunk of material in the middle of the face, shade it just a little bit, like barely touch it, as you do when cooking fish. Like barely touch it, barely do anything to it, and it's gonna go great. But if you try doing too much to it, you're gonna ruin it. So yeah, I would say look at that's it. Let's not do anything else to that nose. That's enough. That's exactly what we need. Now let's go to our square, lovely square, quadrado, and make a little highlight on the nose. Little highlight here, little highlight here, and suddenly it looks like something. Check it out. These axes, but by the way, like these central trunk of shapes, that's all that matters from a drawing for the most part. Most people don't even look at the arms. The arms can be solved like super quickly. So try to spend very little time on the arms. Honestly, unless somebody has an arm fetish, you really don't need to think too much about them. They can be solved like so. Just create the shape that you want. That's what I want to shade. Make the eraser bigger and just create the shape. Let the program help you create the shape, because it really wants to. It has so many functions to help you out with that. Just let it help, and it's gonna really help you. I know that seems to go against what I said about like trying to not let the program or the advanced parts of the program shape your process. Well, it really doesn't, because emphasis on advanced, like this is super basic. This is just creating a shape and then removing with the eraser. That's one of the principles of image creation. Before computers and everything, just like you can add material to a thing in order to create a shape or depth or volume, right? Or you can remove material from your work in order to show the illusion of depth and volume and all of that. And those are principles that apply to all the forms of art, to sculpture, painting, wood carving, like everything, absolutely everything. Everything falls under one of those two things. There's also shaping, manipulating, with which in this context would be when we do transform and we warp and we scale things, make them bigger, smaller. That's the third god of image creation, you know. But the first two gods are much more powerful. Like removal and addition, those are the titans, and they have a little brother called shaping. but removal and addition are immensely more powerful than shaping. Of course, shaping is amazing, and I use it all the time, but it can only take you so far, you know, where addition and removal can take you anywhere. They can take you absolutely anywhere. Look at that. That's it. You honestly, like, just like the nose, and this is something that I've learned like only recently. Honestly, the less you do, like less is more. Honestly, really, less is more with the arms. Like that arm, it's ready. That's it. We don't need to do anything else to that. And you can rinse and repeat with the rest of the body. And I've already shown you the most important things, honestly. Maybe just to make this look like super sexy, let's just go over and reinforce this little line, because this is actually very important. The frontier between these two great, magnificent heels. There you go. So just punch it up a little bit, like punch it down, make it look clear. And you can do this all over the body. You can just like go over again and reinforce the limits between one shape and the other. But in theory, you should be able to completely shape the body without doing line art. That's if you're a real pro, you should be able to do that. I am able to do that, but I'm lazy, so I often don't do that. I am perfectly confident that I can do entire pieces without recurring to line art. But man, line art is just so much. It's so much fun. It comes so easy to me as well. So I just use it all the time. There you go. That's your sample. This was an hour and 36 minutes. Jesus. And this is not the whole runtime, because this is the other chunk that I recorded. I made this way too long. Played it at like 2x or something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. This was some tips for my friend Lucina. I hope this was useful to you. Honestly, I hope this helps. I just hope this helps in some way. Let me know if you watched it. If you watched it whole and you're listening to this last part, leave a comment. I would really appreciate if you leave a comment, loose. Just say loose goose in the comments, so you can let me know that you actually watch it. Because I'm gonna ask you to leave a comment regardless, right? But if you do actually watch it, then tomorrow or some other day, I'm gonna eventually see that you comment loose goose, right? So please do that. I hope you liked this. I hope this is useful. Thank you for all the support you give me. Honestly, Luz, you're amazing. And if anybody else watches this and finds it useful, well, hey, thank you for watching, and I'm really glad this was useful. I would like to have a successful YouTube channel, so I have like a constant passive income, and I don't have to make so many illustrations. I would really love that. So share this with anyone that might be interested. Art is alive and will always be alive, and it doesn't matter what huge new technical things show up, and it doesn't matter how far AI goes. It really doesn't matter. People will always want someone to draw something for them, and they'll always get a kick out of knowing that a person did it. That's always going to be the case. As long as humans exist, there's always going to be someone who gets a kick out of a human doing something. So if you have an artist friend, show them encouragement. Tell them that art is still relevant and important, and it will still be for forever. For as long as we're human, it's going to be relevant and important. Thank you and goodbye.